15 years. That was how long I had spent building my company from an empty warehouse into one of the most respected industrial suppliers in the Midwest. Every contract, every late night, every sacrifice had been worth it. Or at least that was what I believed until a single anonymous text message shattered everything I thought I knew. It arrived on an ordinary Sunday afternoon, while I was sitting across the dining table from my wife, Evelyn. She had spent hours preparing my favorite pot roast, the kind she only made when she was celebrating something special. That day we had every reason to celebrate. Our company, Blackridge Industrial Solutions, had just secured the largest contract in its history, a 3-year agreement worth over $40 million. To everyone else, my life looked perfect. To me, it did too. Until my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Don't react. Someone inside your circle has been recording everything you do. I read the message once, then again. My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. Years of negotiating multi-million-dollar deals had taught me one valuable lesson. Panic never solved problems. Without changing my expression, I slipped the phone back into my pocket. "You've gone quiet," Evelyn said as she poured more gravy onto my plate. "Just thinking about tomorrow's meetings," she smiled. "You work too much." "I know." I finished lunch exactly as if nothing had happened. I laughed at one of her jokes. Helped clear the table, even washed the dishes. Not because I suddenly enjoyed doing housework, but because standing at the sink gave me an excuse to think without anyone studying my face. That night, after Evelyn had fallen asleep, I quietly climbed out of bed. The text refused to leave my mind. Recording everything. It sounded impossible still. Impossible things had a habit of becoming real when someone invested enough money into making them happen. Armed with a flashlight, I began searching the house. 20 minutes passed, then 30. I started convincing myself the message had been nothing more than a cruel prank, until I noticed something unusual inside the bedroom smoke detector. A tiny black circle, barely larger than the head of a screw. My hands froze. Carefully removing the cover, I found a miniature hidden camera tucked inside. The room suddenly felt colder. Someone had been watching us sleep, trying to control my breathing. I continued searching. Another camera hid inside the bathroom ventilation grill. A third was disguised as a USB phone charger in my home office. The fourth sat behind a digital clock in the kitchen. The fifth overlooked the garage from inside a motion sensor. 5 cameras, 5 silent witnesses. I placed every device on the bathroom counter and stared at them. Whoever installed them hadn't been interested in stealing jewelry or cash. They wanted information, private conversations, business discussions, moments no stranger should ever witness. The terrifying part wasn't finding the cameras. It was realizing how long they might have been there. Days, weeks, months? I couldn't know. At 2 o'clock that morning, I sat alone on the edge of the bathtub, holding 5 tiny devices that suddenly carried the weight of my entire life. Someone had watched me laugh with my wife, watched me work, watched me argue, watched me live. And somehow, they had done it without leaving a single clue. I wanted to wake Evelyn, tell her everything, call the police. But something deep inside me said no, not yet. If whoever planted those cameras was still collecting footage, removing them immediately would only alert them that I knew. Sometimes the smartest move wasn't attacking. Sometimes it was pretending to know nothing at all. The next morning, I kissed Evelyn goodbye exactly as I always did. "I'll be late tonight," I said. "Big meeting, probably." She smiled and wished me luck. I drove toward the office with one question repeating inside my mind. Who had done this? An angry former employee? A competitor? Someone hoping to blackmail me? Or someone much closer? When I walked into Blackridge Industrial Solutions headquarters, my business partner, Adrian Keller, was already inside his glass office. He looked up, smiled warmly, and waved me in. "There he is," he laughed. "The man responsible for yesterday's victory." I smiled back, but this time something felt different. For 15 years, Adrian had been more than a business partner. He had been my closest friend. Yet as I looked into his eyes that morning, an uneasy feeling settled in my chest. I had absolutely no proof, only instinct. And for the first time in 15 years, my instinct was whispering his name. I refused to let my suspicions show. If Adrian was involved, The last thing I wanted was for him to realize I had uncovered anything. Men who believed they were winning often became careless. I intended to let him make that mistake. "Coffee?" Adrian asked as I stepped into his office. "Sure." He poured 2 cups and leaned back in his chair with the same confident smile I'd trusted for 15 years. "We finally did it," he said proudly. "Black Ridge is officially playing with the big companies now. We earned it." He raised his mug. "Here's to the next 15 years. I forced a smile and clinked my cup against his. Inside, every instinct told me to watch every word. "I was thinking," I said casually, "we should celebrate the contract. You, me, Evelyn, your wife Sophie, and maybe invite our attorney, Margaret Lewis." His smile flickered for the briefest moment. "Almost invisible, almost." "That's actually a great idea," he replied. That tiny hesitation stayed with me long after I left his office. Margaret had represented Black Ridge since our 3rd year in business. She was brilliant, impossible to manipulate, and famous for spotting legal traps before anyone else noticed them. A guilty man rarely enjoyed eating dinner beside the company's lawyer. 2 evenings later, we met at an upscale steakhouse overlooking the river. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors while soft piano music drifted through the dining room. To everyone around us, we looked like lifelong friends celebrating success. Only I knew the truth. Adrian laughed easily throughout the evening. Sophie admired the restaurant. Evelyn complimented the food. Margaret mostly listened, carefully watching everyone without saying much. She had always possessed that ability. Nothing escaped her attention. At one point, she looked directly at me. "You seem distracted tonight. Just tired." She nodded, though I wasn't convinced she believed me. As dinner ended, Adrian wrapped an arm around my shoulder. "I'm proud of what we've built together. So am I." Those words carried a different meaning now. Driving home later, I couldn't stop replaying the evening in my head. If Adrian was innocent, I was beginning to destroy 15 years of friendship over nothing. If he wasn't, I was sitting across dinner tables with the man secretly invading my home. The following morning, I made the first move. Instead of calling the police, I contacted someone I trusted completely, Marcus Grant. Marcus had spent over a decade working in private security before opening his own investigation firm. He specialized in surveillance systems, cybersecurity, and corporate espionage. If anyone could identify the hidden cameras, it was him. When I placed the 5 devices onto his workshop table, his expression changed immediately. "Where did you find these?" "My house." He looked back at me. "All 5? "Yes." Marcus carefully examined one through a magnifying lens. "These aren't cheap." "What does that mean?" "They don't rely on your home's Wi-Fi. So, they contain independent cellular transmitters." He looked me straight in the eye. "Whoever installed these expected you to check your network." I frowned. "So they planned ahead. They planned everything." Marcus removed the back cover from another device. "Professional-grade equipment." He paused. "This wasn't some neighborhood thief. Can you trace where the footage went?" "Possibly." "How long?" "A day or 2. As he continued examining the cameras, he suddenly stopped. "What exactly happens inside your home?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Business calls. Sometimes. Financial discussions. Occasionally." He sighed. "Then I don't think these were installed to spy on your private life." "What else?" "They're collecting material." "For what?" Marcus looked unusually serious. "To build a story." His words sent a chill through me. "A video can be edited," he continued calmly. "A conversation can be cut apart. A harmless meeting can look criminal." He folded his arms. "If someone wanted to accuse you of fraud, corruption, bribery, they wouldn't necessarily need real evidence. They'd only need enough footage to make people believe it." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Suddenly, everything made sense. The cameras, the expensive equipment, the careful placement. Someone wasn't planning to rob me. Someone wanted to destroy me. That evening, I returned home pretending nothing had changed. Evelyn immediately noticed something was wrong. "You've hardly spoken all day. Work has been stressful." She walked closer. "I've known you for 19 years. I smiled weakly. "You always know. Then tell me." I wanted to, more than anything. But if my suspicions were correct, the fewer people who knew, the safer they would be. "I promise," I said softly. When the time is right, I'll explain everything. She searched my face for a long moment before quietly nodding. I trust you. Those 3 words hurt more than anything else because I was keeping the biggest secret of our marriage. Later that night, Marcus finally called. I traced part of the camera network. What did you find? I don't have a name yet. He paused. But I do know one thing. What? The person watching you checks the live footage almost every single night. Marcus spent the next several days quietly monitoring the hidden cameras without disconnecting them. Instead of removing the devices, he modified them so he could track when they became active and where their data was being transmitted. That decision changed everything. Every night between 10:45 p.m. and midnight, someone logged into the camera network, always during the same time window, always for nearly 45 minutes. I checked Adrian's calendar. Almost every evening during those exact hours, he claimed to be working late at the warehouse. Maybe it was a coincidence, maybe not. I wasn't ready to accuse him without proof, so instead of exposing the cameras, I decided to use them. If someone wanted to watch my life, I'd make sure they saw exactly what I wanted them to see. Marcus helped me prepare. He gave me a prepaid phone connected only to a voice recorder. No real calls, he explained. Just act. That evening, I sat in my home office beneath the hidden camera. I opened a fake financial ledger Marcus had created. The pages contained meaningless numbers designed to resemble secret transactions. Then I dialed the burner phone. The recorder answered. I spoke quietly. I'll move the payment after the audit. A pause. No, don't use the company account. Another pause. Nobody can find the second ledger. I ended the call. To anyone secretly watching, it looked exactly like a businessman hiding illegal payments. In reality, every word had been scripted. The performance continued for over a week. Some nights I pretended to count stacks of cash. Other evenings I spread fake invoices across my desk. Occasionally I mentioned imaginary offshore accounts during fake conversations. Every scene was carefully designed to tempt whoever watched the cameras into believing they had discovered evidence. Meanwhile, Marcus continued tracing the surveillance network. 8 days later, he arrived at my office carrying a laptop. I found something. He turned the screen toward me. A vehicle registration. What am I looking at? A delivery van. So it visited your house. When? 4 nights ago. I wasn't home. I know. My stomach tightened. Evelyn? She was grocery shopping. Marcus nodded. The driver entered through your back door. How? He had a key. I stared at him. You're sure? I watched the security footage from your neighbor's camera. He walked in like he owned the place. My pulse quickened. What was he doing? He stayed inside exactly 12 minutes. Marcus opened another video. The man left carrying a small package. He replaced one of your hidden cameras. The realization hit me like a truck. Someone wasn't merely watching my house. They still had access to it. Whoever planned this operation possessed a copy of my home's keys. Marcus zoomed in on the vehicle's license plate. I traced it. To who? A private surveillance contractor. Can we question him? He won't talk. Why not? Cash clients. Professional silence. He closed the laptop. But I did recover one invoice. My heart skipped. The client name had been removed. The payment method had not. A corporate credit card. Marcus pointed toward the transaction details. Recognize the company? I felt my throat tighten. The charge had been processed through Blackridge Industrial Solutions, my own company. I looked at Marcus. Can someone fake this? They could. But I verified it through the merchant. It came from your company's account. My hands slowly formed fists. Someone inside Blackridge had financed surveillance inside my own home. At that moment, another thought struck me. Our company only had 2 executive corporate cards, mine and Adrian's. I already knew mine hadn't been used. That left only one possibility. Still, possibility wasn't proof. I needed more. The following afternoon, Adrian appeared unusually cheerful. He stepped into my office carrying 2 coffees. You've been buried in paperwork lately. Trying to stay ahead. He laughed. You always worry too much. Maybe, or maybe I simply trusted too easily. He leaned against my desk. Have you ever considered bringing in outside investors? The question caught me off guard. We've discussed that before, I know, but think about it. He smiled. With enough capital, we could double the company's size. I like keeping control. His smile faded almost imperceptibly. Sometimes growth requires compromise. So does trust. For the first time, silence filled the room. Then Adrian smiled again. Just something to think about. After he walked away, Marcus called. I've got another lead. What is it? I traced the cloud storage subscription. And the account is hidden behind a fake email. Can you identify the owner? Not directly. But the monthly payment, he paused, comes from the exact same corporate credit card. Every new piece of evidence pointed in the same direction, yet none of it was enough to destroy a man who had spent 15 years earning everyone's trust. If Adrian truly planned to frame me, he would eventually make a mistake. And when he did, I'd be ready. The breakthrough arrived when I least expected it. 10 days after Marcus confirmed that the surveillance equipment had been paid for using a Blackridge corporate card, I received a phone call that changed everything. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number. When I answered, a nervous female voice spoke quietly. Daniel, it's Sophie, Adrian's wife. She had never called me directly before. Not once in 15 years. Is everything okay? I asked. No, she hesitated. I think my husband is hiding something. Every muscle in my body tightened. What happened? I wasn't snooping, she said quickly. I was looking for our insurance documents in Adrian's home office, and I found a locked folder. She paused again. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. What was inside? Pictures. What kind of pictures? Your house. My heart skipped. There were photographs of every room. She took a shaky breath. Your bedroom, your kitchen, your office, even your garage. I closed my eyes. There were handwritten notes beside each picture. What kind of notes? Camera angles. Silence filled the call. There was also a floor plan with red X marks showing where everything had been installed. That was no coincidence. This had been planned months in advance. Daniel. Sophie's voice trembled. I don't know what Adrian is doing, but I'm scared. You did the right thing by calling me. I feel like I'm betraying him. No, I replied calmly. You're preventing something much worse. Before ending the call, I asked her one final favor. Don't mention this conversation to Adrian. I won't. I promise. The moment the call ended, I drove straight to Marcus's office. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Now we know the cameras weren't installed by some hired investigator acting alone. They were planned. For months. Marcus nodded. And that's not all. He opened another folder. I finally traced the cloud account. My pulse quickened. What did you find? The account itself is fake. I expected that. But the payment history isn't. He rotated his monitor toward me. Every monthly subscription payment had originated from the same corporate credit card. The authorization records included digital signatures. One signature appeared again and again. Adrian Keller. For the first time since this nightmare began, I finally possessed undeniable evidence. But Marcus wasn't finished. There's more. He handed me another document. This came from your company's financial records. I scanned the page. Several unusually large consulting payments had been approved over the past 6 months. The recipient company didn't sound familiar. Northgate Strategic Advisors. We've never hired them. Marcus nodded. Because they don't actually exist. What? They're a shell company. Owned by? He looked directly into my eyes. A private investment group. Everything suddenly connected: the cameras, the fake surveillance, the mysterious consulting invoices, the push for outside investors. Adrian hadn't been spying on me out of curiosity. He had been building a case, a fake case. One that would paint me as a corrupt executive before forcing me out of the company. Then the investment group could buy my shares for a fraction of their real value. 15 years of friendship, reduced to a business strategy. That afternoon, I arranged a confidential meeting with our attorney, Margaret Lewis. After reviewing every document, every payment record, and every surveillance report, she slowly removed her glasses. This is bigger than corporate fraud. How much bigger? If everything here is genuine. She looked at me seriously. Your partner committed multiple felonies. What should we do? We don't confront him. Why not? Because he still thinks you're unaware. She closed the folder. That advantage is priceless. Margaret leaned forward. Let him make the next move. What if he destroys evidence? He won't. Why? Because he believes he's winning. Her words reminded me of something I'd learned years earlier. The most dangerous criminals rarely failed because they lacked intelligence. They failed because success made them careless. Margaret continued. I want a complete forensic audit of Black Ridge's finances. I'll arrange it. And don't tell Adrian, understood? She smiled slightly. If he's planning what I think he is, he'll eventually present fake evidence against you. What happens then? Margaret calmly closed the folder. That's when we present the real evidence. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready because Adrian believed he was setting a trap. What he didn't realize was that he had already walked into mine. 3 days later, Adrian made his move. Margaret informed me that an emergency board meeting had been scheduled for Friday morning. According to the agenda, Adrian wanted to discuss serious financial concerns involving executive management. Exactly as we had predicted, he believed I was walking into my downfall. Instead, he was walking into his own. Friday morning arrived. I wore my best Navy suit and walked into the Black Ridge boardroom without showing the slightest sign of concern. Around the table sat Margaret Lewis, 3 independent board members, our chief financial officer, Adrian Keller, and one unfamiliar guest. Adrian stood to introduce him. This is Richard Lawson, managing director of Summit Capital Partners. They've expressed interest in investing in Black Ridge. So, that was the investment group. Everything fit perfectly. Margaret opened the meeting with routine business updates before turning toward Adrian. You requested this meeting. The floor is yours. Adrian stood confidently and placed a thick folder on the conference table. I'm deeply disappointed to present this information, he began. Over the past several months, I've uncovered evidence suggesting Daniel has secretly diverted company funds into undisclosed accounts. One board member frowned. That's a serious accusation. I agree, Adrian replied, sliding printed documents across the table. Bank transfers, private ledgers, suspicious financial conversations. I recognized every page. They were based on the fake evidence he had gathered from the hidden cameras. For a few moments, nobody spoke. Then Margaret calmly looked toward me. Daniel? I slowly stood. I appreciate Adrian bringing this forward. He looked surprised. I also appreciate how much work he invested in creating these accusations. Confusion spread around the room. I placed my own folder on the table. Before anyone reaches a conclusion, I'd like everyone to examine another set of documents. The board members began reading. Corporate credit card statements, cloud storage payments, photographs of hidden cameras, security footage showing an unknown technician entering my home, digital purchase records. Finally, Adrian's electronic authorization for every surveillance payment. Richard Lawson stopped reading. His expression changed immediately. One board member looked directly at Adrian. What exactly is this? I answered before Adrian could. 5 hidden cameras were secretly installed throughout my home. The room fell silent. They recorded my wife and me for weeks. I pointed toward the payment records. Those cameras were purchased using Black Ridge Industrial Solutions' executive corporate card. Everyone looked toward Adrian. He remained silent. Margaret slid another document across the table. Our independent forensic audit found no missing funds. She paused. Every dollar's been fully accounted for. Then she produced the final piece of evidence. An email chain recovered during the investigation. It contained messages between Adrian and Summit Capital discussing a future acquisition. One sentence had been highlighted. Once Daniel's reputation is destroyed, his shares can be acquired at a substantially reduced valuation. Richard Lawson looked horrified. I had no knowledge of surveillance activities, he said immediately. I was told there were legitimate financial concerns. Margaret nodded. The evidence suggests otherwise. Adrian finally spoke. This isn't what it looks like. No, I asked quietly. You hired people to enter my home. You recorded my family. You manufactured evidence. You attempted to destroy my reputation. What exactly does it look like? His confidence disappeared. I can explain. No, Margaret interrupted. You can explain it to law enforcement. Within minutes, the board voted unanimously. Adrian Keller was immediately removed as director. suspended from all company operations, and formally referred for criminal investigations. Summit Capital withdrew its investment proposal before the meeting even ended. As everyone slowly left the boardroom, Adrian remained seated. For the first time in 15 years, he couldn't look me in the eye. Daniel. His voice barely rose above a whisper. We built this company together. I looked at him for a long moment. We did, and you chose to destroy it. Without another word, I walked away. The criminal investigation lasted several months. Every hidden camera, every payment, every forged document, every email, every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. Adrian eventually pleaded guilty to multiple criminal charges, including fraud, unlawful surveillance, and conspiracy. His business career ended forever. Sophie divorced him shortly afterward. She later sent Evelyn a handwritten letter apologizing for everything her husband had done. Neither of us blamed her. She had been another victim. As for Blackridge Industrial Solutions, the company never stopped growing. Our biggest client renewed its contract ahead of schedule, and confidence returned. Customers stayed loyal because the truth had prevailed. A few months later, I removed the final hidden camera from evidence storage. Instead of throwing it away, I placed it inside a small display case in my office, not as a trophy, as a reminder. Success attracts competitors, trust attracts betrayal. But patience uncovers the truth. People often ask whether I regret waiting before exposing Adrian. My answer is always the same. If I had reacted in anger that first Sunday afternoon, I would have found the cameras, but never the conspiracy behind them. Sometimes justice belongs to the person willing to wait long enough for the truth to reveal itself. 15 years of friendship ended in one courtroom. But Blackridge survived, because one man chose betrayal and another chose patience.